trading up for someone younger and more passionate. My name is Marcus. I'm 49 years old. Been married to Rebecca for 7 years. And I discovered that message on my kitchen table at 6:30 this morning. She had vanished. The bed remained untouched. The house felt hollow somehow, as if she'd removed more than just her belongings. I stood there gripping the paper, scanning it 3 times. Then I creased it once and placed it beside my coffee cup. The words hurt, naturally, but beneath that was something different. Perhaps relief, or simply the end of pretending everything was okay when it hadn't been okay for many months. Rebecca had always been careless with finances, credit lines exhausted, buying binges she couldn't justify, debts that materialized from thin air. I'd bailed her out more times than I could remember, created excuses to her relatives, smoothed things over when she'd overdraw accounts or neglect the house payment. Her father, Robert, used to say she inherited her mother's beauty and her grandfather's expensive tastes. Nobody was joking anymore. The last 6 months had been terrible. She'd become withdrawn, secretive with her phone, returning home late from the office without reasons. When I'd inquire about her whereabouts, she'd lash out at me like I was cross-examining her instead of simply curious why supper was getting cold. We'd stopped discussing anything important. Stopped talking much at all. I moved to the window and gazed out at the driveway. Her vehicle was missing, naturally. So was the jewelry case from our bedroom bureau and the emergency money I stored in the office drawer. She'd been comprehensive. I had to acknowledge that. My phone vibrated. Text from her father. Is everything all right with you both? Rebecca phoned yesterday evening, seemed distressed. I stared at the message for several minutes before responding. We'll work it out. But standing there in my vacant kitchen, I had the oddest sensation that things were about to become much worse before they improved. Rebecca had always been reckless when she was furious. And if she believed she could wound me by spending money, she was about to discover just how much destruction she could cause. I poured myself another cup of coffee and sat down at the table. The message was still there, condemning me with every word, but something about it seemed wrong. Not just harsh, deliberate, like she'd been orchestrating this moment for longer than I'd understood. The house was too silent. I could hear the refrigerator running, the clock ticking on the wall, my own breathing, everything routine, except nothing would ever be routine again. Robert Caldwell had built Meridian Industries from scratch. Started with a single factory in Mobile, Alabama, manufacturing construction equipment and transformed it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise with contracts throughout the South. He was the type of man who knew every worker's name, labored weekends beside his team, and never requested anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. When I married his daughter, he took me aside at the wedding. Marcus, he said, I appreciate that you work with your hands. Rebecca needs someone reliable. I'd been supervising construction teams for 16 years by then. Understood how to manage budgets and timelines and men who didn't enjoy taking instructions. Robert and I got along well. We both valued earning what you possessed. Rebecca was different. Gorgeous, captivating, but she'd grown up wealthy and never understood the value of it. Her mother had passed when she was 11, and Robert had attempted to compensate for that loss by providing her everything she desired. Education, automobiles, credit cards without restrictions. It was affection, but it was also an error. 4 years ago, Robert had requested to meet me at his office. I need assistance, he said, shutting the door. I want to establish a joint account with you for business expenses, machinery, investments, things like that. I'd been puzzled. Why not use your standard business accounts? He'd appeared uncomfortable because Rebecca has access to those as my daughter. She's named as a beneficiary on everything. And recently, he stopped then began again. She's been inquiring extensively about my finances, wanting to understand retirement plans, inheritance, available cash. Makes me uneasy. You don't trust her. I don't trust her decisions regarding money. Never have. But you comprehend business, Marcus. You know how to be responsible with substantial amounts. We'd maintained the arrangement privately. The account was significant. Nearly $200,000 that Robert used for major equipment acquisitions and growth planning. Only he and I had access. Even the bank documents listed it as a business partnership account between Robert Caldwell and Marcus Thompson. "Don't tell Rebecca about this," he'd said that day. "She'd be wounded thinking I don't trust her. But money transforms people, Marcus. And I've worked too hard to watch it all vanish because someone can't control themselves." I'd agreed, understanding his concern. But over the months, I'd begun noticing things. The way Rebecca would search through my wallet when she thought I was asleep, how she'd ask innocent questions about Robert's business, about my job, about accounts and investments. Little inquiries disguised as conversation. Now standing in my empty kitchen, those conversations seemed different, less innocent, more like intelligence gathering. My phone started ringing at 9 that morning. First call was from First National Bank, automated fraud notification. Someone had tried to withdraw $4,000 from an account ending in 8241. I hung up, confused. That wasn't one of my account numbers. Second call came 15 minutes later. Different bank. Unauthorized transaction on account ending in 9635. Again, not mine. Third call was from a credit card company. Someone had exhausted a card I'd never requested, spending $11,000 in 3 hours at upscale stores in downtown Mobile. When I told them I hadn't made those purchases, the representative requested my social security number to confirm my identity. "Sir," she said after a moment, "this card was opened 2 months ago with your information, but the authorized user is listed as Rebecca Thompson. Did you add her to the account?" "No," I said, "I've never seen that card before." "I understand. Well, someone's been quite active this morning. Neiman Marcus, Louis Vuitton, Apple Store, jewelry store on Government Street. All transactions within the past 3 hours." I hung up and collapsed into my kitchen chair. Rebecca hadn't just abandoned me. She was methodically destroying what she believed were my finances, every account she knew about, every credit line she could reach, every dollar she could grab. My phone rang again. This time it was Robert. "Marcus," he said, and his voice was different, tense. "I need you to clarify something to me. I just finished talking with my bank. They're informing me someone's been making unauthorized withdrawals from our joint account. Substantial ones." I felt something icy settle in my stomach. "What kind of withdrawals?" "45,000 this morning. Another 25,000 30 minutes ago. The bank flagged it because the transactions were made at different locations and they're all cash withdrawals." His voice became quieter. "Marcus, the bank says the withdrawals were made by someone with access to the account information. Someone who knew the account numbers." I closed my eyes. Rebecca had been searching through my documents, my wallet, my computer. She discovered the account information and thought she was stealing from me. Instead, she was stealing from her own father. "Robert," I said slowly. "Rebecca left me this morning. She's attempting to hurt me financially, but she doesn't know about our arrangement. She thinks that account is mine." Silence on the other end. "Then you're telling me my daughter is stealing from her own father to get revenge on her husband?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Another long pause. "How much does she have access to?" "All of it." I said she had access to my office, my computer, my files. If she copied the account information. "Dear God," Robert whispered. "She could empty everything." I looked at the message on my counter. Those harsh words about trading up for someone better. Rebecca thought she was ruining my life. Instead, she was about to ruin her own. By noon, Robert and I were sitting in the bank manager's office watching security footage on a computer screen. There was Rebecca, clear as daylight, sliding a driver's license across the counter to a teller. She'd withdrawn $75,000 in 4 separate transactions at 4 different branches. "How is this possible?" Robert asked the manager, a lean man named Phillips, who kept adjusting his spectacles. "This is a business account. She shouldn't have access." "Sir, She had all the account information, numbers, routing codes, even the security questions. When someone has that level of detail, we assume they're an authorized user. Phillips looked uncomfortable. Plus, she's your daughter. The teller recognized the last name. Robert's face was granite. She's not authorized on this account. Only Mr. Thompson and myself. We understand that now, sir. We've frozen the account immediately, but I'm afraid there's only about 50,000 left of the original balance. 150,000 gone in one morning. Robert turned to me. Where else could she have obtained account information? I thought about the past few months. She's been in my office at home. Searches through my desk when she thinks I'm not watching. The account statements arrive at the house. Have you confronted her about the theft? I can't locate her. Her phone goes directly to voicemail. She's not at work. I called and they said she took vacation time. Phillips cleared his throat. Gentlemen, I should mention that we're required to report this to the authorities. This amount constitutes grand theft, and since it's from a business account, there may be additional charges. Robert was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Do what you must." We walked out of the bank into the afternoon heat. Robert stopped next to his truck and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Pain, but also something harder. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. That money wasn't just sitting there. I was planning to use it for equipment purchases next month. New machinery that would have created 15 jobs. Now I have to figure out how to cover payroll while we sort this mess out." The weight of that hit me. This wasn't just about Robert losing money. It was about the people who worked for him, the families depending on those paychecks. "I'm sorry," I said. "If I'd known she was going through my things." "This isn't your fault." He pulled out his phone. "But I need to make some calls. See if I can move some assets around, cover the shortfall." He paused. "And I need to figure out how to tell the rest of the family that Rebecca has stolen from the business." That afternoon, I drove around Mobile looking for her car. Checked her sister's house, her best friend's apartment, the spa where she used to go. Nothing. But at 5 o'clock, my phone rang with another fraud alert. She just tried to use a credit card at a hotel in Montgomery, 2 hours north. I called Robert. "She's in Montgomery. Probably thinks she's far enough away to avoid questions." "Good," he said. "Because I just got off the phone with my attorney. He says if we can prove she's still actively spending the money, it strengthens the theft case. Shows intent to defraud." "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing. Let her keep spending. Every transaction she makes digs the hole deeper." His voice was bitter. "I raised her to be better than this, Marcus. I don't know where I went wrong." "You didn't go wrong. You trusted your daughter." "Yeah," he said. "I did. And now I have to live with the consequences." That evening, Robert called an emergency family meeting at his house. His sister Patricia, his brother-in-law David, and Rebecca's younger brother Nathan all showed up confused and worried. Robert had told them it was about Rebecca, but nothing more. I sat in the living room where I'd spent countless Sunday dinners listening to Robert explain everything. The joint account, the theft, the police report he'd filed that afternoon. The family listened in stunned silence. "Wait," Nathan said when Robert finished. "You're saying Rebecca stole money from the business?" "Our business." 150,000, Robert said quietly. "Money that was earmarked for expansion, for new equipment. Money that would have secured jobs for people who've been with us for years." Patricia spoke up. "But why would she do that? She doesn't need money. You've always taken care of her." Robert looked at me. "Because she thought she was stealing from Marcus. She was trying to hurt her husband financially and ended up robbing her own family." The room went dead quiet. David leaned forward. "Are you telling us she didn't know the money was yours?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. She thought it was Marcus's personal account. She was trying to destroy his life and ended up destroying her own future with this family. Nathan stood up and started pacing. This is insane. Rebecca's always been irresponsible with money, but theft from her own father. There's more, Robert said. He pulled out a folder from his desk. I had my accountant go through everything this afternoon. This wasn't the first time. Small amounts have been missing from various accounts over the past year. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. I thought it was bookkeeping errors. He spread out bank statements on the coffee table. Look at these dates. February 12th, June 18th, September 25th. Every time it coincides with periods when Rebecca was asking me about money, about the business, about my retirement plans. Patricia picked up one of the statements. You think she's been stealing from you for a year? I think she's been testing the waters, seeing what she could get away with. Today was just the first time she got greedy enough to take an amount that triggered fraud alerts. I felt sick. Robert, I had no idea she was. This isn't about you, Marcus. This is about my daughter making choices, bad choices that hurt people who trusted her. He gathered up the papers. I've been supporting her lifestyle for years. Her car payment, her credit cards, even some of the expenses for the house you two live in. All of that stops now. David asked the question everyone was thinking. What happens next? The police will arrest her when they find her. The district attorney will decide whether to prosecute, and I'll have to figure out how to rebuild the trust she's destroyed. Robert's voice was steady, but I could see the pain in his eyes. She's my daughter, and I love her, but she's also a thief who stole from her own family. Nathan sat back down, looking stunned. What about Marcus? Where does this leave him? Robert looked at me. Marcus has done nothing wrong. If anything, he's a victim here, too. She left him, tried to destroy him financially, and used information she got from his private papers to commit a felony. He paused. As far as I'm concerned, Marcus is still family. Rebecca's the one who chose to leave. The words hit me harder than I'd expected. After 7 years of marriage, I was about to lose a wife, but keep a father-in-law. The next morning, Detective Williams called to tell me they'd found Rebecca. She'd been arrested at a luxury resort in Montgomery trying to pay for a weekend package with one of the stolen credit cards. She was being held on charges of grand theft, credit card fraud, and embezzlement. She wants to talk to you, Detective Williams said. Says she has information that might help her case. I drove to the Montgomery County Jail that afternoon. Rebecca was waiting in a small room wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back and her face swollen from crying. She looked different, smaller. Marcus, she said when I sat down across from her. Thank God you're here. This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't say anything. I was angry. Okay. You've been so distant lately. And I thought you were having an affair. I saw all those bank statements, all that money and accounts I didn't know about. I figured you were hiding assets from me, planning to leave me with nothing. So, you decided to leave me with nothing first. I wasn't thinking clearly, I was hurt. She leaned forward. But, Marcus, we can fix this. You can talk to my dad. Explain that it was a mistake. Tell him I'll pay everything back. I looked at her for a long time. Rebecca, do you know whose money you stole? It was your money. I saw the account statements in your desk. It was your father's money. The joint account he set up with me for business purposes. The one he asked me not to tell you about because he was worried about your spending habits. The color drained from her face. That's not possible. $150,000 money he was going to use to expand the business to create jobs for people who've worked for him for years. You stole from your own father, Rebecca. She sat back in her chair like I'd struck her. No, that's not. You're lying. Call him yourself. Ask him about the joint account. Ask him about the police report he filed yesterday. Ask him about the lawyer he hired to make sure you face the full consequences of what you've done. For the first time since I'd known her, Rebecca was completely speechless. He knows about the other times, too, I continued. The smaller amounts over the past year. He had his accountant trace everything. It wasn't bookkeeping errors, Rebecca. It was theft. She started crying then. Not the pretty tears she used when she wanted something, but ugly, desperate sobs. Marcus, you have to help me. I'm his daughter. He won't let them send me to prison. He already has. You made your choice when you decided to hurt me. Now you get to live with the consequences. I stood up to leave. Marcus, wait. Please. What about us? What about our marriage? I looked back at her one last time. You ended our marriage when you wrote that message. You ended your relationship with your family when you stole their money. And you ended any chance of fixing this when you chose revenge over honesty. So that's it. You're just going to abandon me? No, Rebecca. You abandoned yourself. I walked out of that jail and drove straight to Robert's office. He was sitting behind his desk looking older than I'd ever seen him. How'd it go? He asked. She knows, I said. She knows exactly what she did and who she did it to. Robert nodded slowly. Good. Maybe now she can start making better choices. But we both knew it was too late for that. 4 months later, I sat in the courtroom as Judge Patterson read Rebecca's sentence. 6 years in state prison for grand theft with the possibility of parole after 4 years. Additional restitution of $150,000 plus court costs and penalties. Rebecca stood next to her public defender, no longer the confident woman who'd left that cruel message on my kitchen table. She'd aged in those 4 months of jail time waiting for trial. Her hair was dull, her face hollow, her expensive clothes replaced by an ill-fitting suit her brother had brought her. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she turned to look at Robert in the gallery. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry. Robert didn't respond. He sat with his hands folded, his face expressionless. He'd attended every hearing, not to support her, but to ensure justice was served. The prosecutor had painted a clear picture during the trial. Rebecca had systematically stolen from her family for over a year, culminating in the massive theft that devastated the business's expansion plans. The 15 jobs Robert had planned to create were postponed indefinitely. 3 longtime employees had to be laid off because of the financial shortfall. Nathan testified about the family trust that had been revoked, removing Rebecca from any inheritance. Patricia spoke about the shame Rebecca had brought to the family name. Robert himself took the stand to explain how his daughter's betrayal had forced him to mortgage his own home to keep the business solvent. But the most damaging testimony came from the bank records. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every fraudulent charge was documented with timestamps and security footage. The evidence was overwhelming. As the bailiff led Rebecca away in handcuffs, she looked back one more time. Not at her family, not at me, but at the courtroom door she wouldn't walk through as a free woman for years to come. The gavel fell with a sharp crack that echoed through the silent room. Outside the courthouse, Robert and I stood in the afternoon sun. The family had already left, unable to watch their daughter and sister taken away in chains. But Robert had waited. It's finished, he said quietly. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. He looked older, but somehow steadier. I keep thinking about the people at the plant. Good people who work hard, who depend on steady paychecks. She put all of that at risk for what? To hurt you because she was angry. We walked to our trucks in silence. Robert stopped at his door and turned back to me. Marcus, I want you to know something. What she did doesn't change how I feel about you. You're still family as far as I'm concerned. More family than she's been lately. I appreciate that, Robert, more than you know. The business is going to recover. It'll take time, but we'll rebuild. And when we do, I want you to consider coming to work for us. We could use someone with your skills and integrity. I thought about that empty house I'd been living in, the divorce papers I'd signed 3 weeks earlier, the fresh start I'd been planning. Let me think about it. Take all the time you need. 7 months later, Rebecca's appeals were denied. The conviction stood. Robert's business had recovered enough to hire back the laid-off employees and even add 3 new positions. The expansion project was back on track. As for me, I kept the house and started over. Rebecca lost everything. Her family, her freedom, and any claim to the life she'd tried to destroy out of spite. In the end, her cruel message about trading up for someone better had been prophetic, just not in the way she'd intended. I had upgraded to a life without lies, without betrayal, and without someone who would steal from her own father to settle a score. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone destroy themselves while you watch from a safe distance.